This is the week of Kabbalah Satire, the week that the Chayzer said has the Kedusha of Shavuos in it. And of course, the focus of our Sedra is on the Aseret Sedibres. But the name of our Sedra is Parshas Yisro. And many have asked and many have explained in different ways why Yisro, as important as he was over here, deserves the very name of the Sedra that symbolizes, that has within it, Kabbalah Satire. I know Yisro was Moshe Rabbeinu's father-in-law, but why is he the only father-in-law that is accorded such honor during the zenith, during the highest point of the son-in-law's covenant? There doesn't seem to be any other father-in-law throughout the entire Torah who is the Hakdama, who prefaces the great honor that comes to the son-in-law. Well, the Arizal tells us some rather fascinating things. This in the Likutei Torah from the Arizal. Moshe Rabbeinu was the neshama of Hevel, says the Arizal, Adam HaRishon's son. Yisro was the neshama of Cain, Adam HaRishon's other son. Cain killed Hevel, amongst different reasons, because he was jealous that Hevel had an extra twin. Both Cain and Hevel were born with their mates. They were born with twin sisters. Cain was born with only one twin sister, and Hevel was born with two. Cain's jealousy over the second twin helped to kindle the anger that eventually led up to Hevel's murder. Sipora, says the Arizal, was the neshama of Hevel's extra twin. So in essence, what happens over here is that Yisro comes to Moshe Rabbeinu to return Sipora to him, or to give Sipora to him. Cain returns to Hevel to give back the extra twin, which was the source of their jealousy. So if we are to understand why the parsha of Shidduchim and in general partnerships in life are so complicated, it's because it's so intertwined with whomever or whatever we were from before. The Sefer Be'er Moshe from the Urja Rebbe adds some more fascinating digdukim to the Yisaitis that the Arizal gave us now. The pasuk says, "V'yikach Yisro chaysin Moshe Sipora Eishes Moshe Achar Shilucha." How come the pasuk doesn't just say "V'yikach Yisro es Sipora Bitai"? If you want to describe a father coming with his daughter, so would you say, "Oh, this man came with so and so's wife," and not even mention the fact that she is his daughter? One would think that the appropriate way the pasuk should describe this is Vayikach Yisro es Bitai. The pasuk makes it sound like the relationship that Yisro had to Tzipora was the fact that she was Moshe Rabbeinu's wife, more so than the fact that she was his own daughter. Instead of Vayikach Yisro es Bitai, it's Vayikach Yisro chaysin Moshe, again reminding us he's the father of Moshe, as Sipora Eishes Moshe Achar Shilucha. And the reason is the pasuk wants to stress, explains the Be'er Moshe, what the Arizal teaches us. The point isn't that she was Yisro's daughter. The point is that she was once the wife of Moshe Rabbeinu in the form of the extra twin for Hevel. And Cain stepped in to distort that, and now he was making amends. And now he was returning it. The Arizal says the Rashi Tevis of Ani Chesencha Yisro are Aleph, Ches, Yud, my brother. Yisro is saying to Moshe Rabbeinu, my brother, referring to their first relationship as Cain and Hevel, I have now come to be Mesak in my wrongdoing. Now the extra twin wasn't the only point of dispute between Cain and Hevel. There was also an issue of the fact that Hevel believed in Hashgacha Pratis and Cain denied it. Cain said, "Less din v'less dayin, there is no judgment. I need not fear. My actions won't have to be accounted for." And therefore, Yisro comes to us in this Pasha, says the Arizal, precisely to do what? To lay down the law of judgment, of how judges should function with Klal Yisrael. Again, to be Mesak in his earlier statement that less din v'less dayin, that there is no justice. And therefore, says the Be'er Moshe, we can explain why Yisro should come and even start suggesting to Moshe Rabbeinu how to run Klal Yisrael. After all, you're the stranger, you're the outsider who just came in. I know he was a father-in-law, but still. His son-in-law was Moshe Rabbeinu. Does an outsider come and he starts telling the king of Klal Yisrael how to go about judging his own people? And the answer is, says the Ber Moshe, Yisro knew that he had to do this to be Misaki, his earlier opinion of less din less dayan. He has to now become the symbol of justice. He will teach Klal Yisrael how to structure their Batei Din. Now the pasuk says, Yisro came, says the Ber Moshe, El Hamidbar Asher Huchayin Sham Haru Elikim, to the Midbar where Moshe Rabbeinu dwelled over there, the Haru Elikim. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu did not dwell by Har Sinai. However, if we go back to what the Midrashim tell us in the dispute between Cain and Hevel, one of their arguments were as to in whose boundaries the Beis HaMikdash will stand. Hevel said the Beis HaMikdash will be in Maitachum, and Cain said the Beis HaMikdash will be in Maitachum. So now, the pasuk is explaining to us that Yisro is acknowledging to Moshe Rabbeinu, who owns the right of the Beis HaMikdash being in his Rishos. He comes, El Midbar Asher Huchayin Sham Haru Elikim. Yisro acknowledges that the Haru Elikim, that the Hashor Hashchina, rests in the surroundings of Moshe Rabbeinu. Take a further look, says the Ber Moshe, in the Midrashim, in Bereshit, what were Hevel and Cain arguing about? One thing was in Yonei Mominis, about Karkais and Metaltalin, about lands and movable objects. And therefore, Yisro now says to Moshe Rabbeinu, who should you look for? When you're looking to appoint the appropriate judges for Klal Yisrael, look for Sangnei Batza, people that hate money. And that's the reason the Parsha is called Parshas Yisro, says the Ber Moshe. Because we're not just talking about a father-in-law who came to give his son-in-law advice. We're talking about a tikkun of the world's first crime, Ben Adam L'Chaveira. The first dispute, Ben Adam L'Chaveira. The first lack of understanding of each other. And that's the reason that Moshe Rabbeinu accepted the advice for Yisro, because he also wanted the tikkun hanashames over here. And that is why, explains the Ber Moshe, the pasuk makes such a big to-do about Yisro's karbonos. After Yizaki, he says, Ki Godel Hashem Mikalo Elikim, correcting his earlier statement of less din v'less dayan. And then we talk about the Oila and the Zvachim that he was makriv, and the Suda that he served to Moshe Rabbeinu. The most famous dispute between Cain and Hevel was about the carbon. Hevel brought a real carbon to Hashem, and Cain only brought flax. He didn't want to spend the money on the carbon. He was jealous of what Hevel was doing. So over here, he is misakin once again with being makriv karbonis and joining in this Suda, which is Zayman to a Mizbech, together with Moshe Rabbeinu. And we can perhaps also understand why this is Hachana for Kabbalah Satayra. The Rebbeinu Shalom is now giving us the law. The Rebbeinu Shalom is giving us a set of guidelines, a life to abide by. And then we run into a theoretical problem. Why do we have Tzadik v'Raloi, the Rasha v'Tayvloi, the Shaila Moshe Rabbeinu will ask the Rebbeinu Shalom? Doesn't it stand to reason, if I am instructed with a set of laws, if I abide by the laws, everything will go just great for me, and if I don't abide by the laws, I'm going to be punished. So how can we look around at the physical life that unfolds in front of us, and sometimes the Rishonim have it better than the Tzaddikim do? And the answer is the Rishonim don't have it better than the Tzaddikim. The answer is the Torah is the blueprint of the world. And by abiding through the laws of the Torah, you have an opportunity to be misakein the various different things that you did wrong, whether in your own lifetime or in previous lifetime. And ultimately, adhering to the words of the Torah draws you into a situation where you will correct any wrongdoing. You will reconstruct the things you may have undone during previous times. You will accept the challenges which clearly are opportunities to rectify situations that you failed in the past. And you will have your tikkun. And you will merit the olam haba that is sweet, that lasts forever, that is unmatched by anything down here in this world. But you would have never gotten close to that olam haba, to that type of a schar, had you not had the opportunity of correcting the things that you did wrong. So in other words, the message is, you will have the ultimate schar for adhering to the Torah, and the Rahman al-Islam, the ultimate lack of a schar and frustration for not having done so. Down here in the world, it doesn't always play out that way, because down here in the world, things have to put themselves back together. Schar mitzvahs b'hayal moleka, although under Michael Perry saying, Boilam Hazeh. In a similar vein, It is at the beginning of next week's Parashah, Parashas Mishpatim, that the Zohar HaKadosh says, Ve'ela HaMishpatim, Dahi Raza de Gulgula. Here is the side of the inyan of Gilgul, that Neshamas keep coming down to this world until they're misaking what they unraveled in the previous generation. Now, out of all the Parashas in the Torah, why would the Zohar say that the secrets of Gilgul are in Parashas Mishpatim, that deal with halachas of Geneza and Aveda, and what happens when a person steals an axe or steals a lamb, or what happens when you're supposed to watch someone else's item and it's stolen from you, and so on? What does all of this have to do with the union of Gilgul Neshamas? Out of all Parashas in the Torah, to say that the secrets of Gilgul are there, the Parashas Mishpatim would seem to be the least likely Parashah. So if you do the famous medrash that HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu to wait by a certain tree and look to see what is going to take place without intervening. And Moshe Rabbeinu saw person A come and sit down by the tree, take a rest, get up and leave, but he forgot that his purse was laying there. He left, leaving his purse down by the floor. Person B comes to rest by the same tree, and he notices a purse full of money, and he takes it. Person C comes by, also to rest by this very convenient tree, knows nothing of any purse. The one who was there first, person A, comes running back and says, "Where's my purse? I must have left it over here." And he wakes up person C and says, "Where's my purse? I was laying here before you did." And person C says, "I haven't the vaguest idea. I've never seen any purse." And person A gets so angry that he beats up person C. Person C receives makas retzach from person A. "How dare you steal my purse?" And person C pleads his innocence, but it's to no avail. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe Rabbeinu, seemingly person C was just in the wrong place, in the wrong time, by chance. But there is no such a thing as by chance down here in this world. Nothing is a coincidence. What actually happened over here is that in a previous Gilgul, person A, that is the one who lost the purse over here, stole money from person B. Person B took him to court, but the judge, that's person C, took a bribe and ruled that the money need not be returned. Now everything will have to straighten itself out. Person A, who stole the money from person B, will have to come down to this world to at one point lose a purse with the exact same amount of money, and person B, who was the victim in the first Gilgul, will now be the lucky one to find it and walk away with it. In essence, he was getting back what was taken from him. Person C, the judge, who took a bribe to defend the Ganef, is now going to be beaten up by the Ganef. And why is all of this in Parashas Mishpatim? Because Parashas Mishpatim, that teaches us the halachis of ben adam lechaveroi, the halachis of responsibility, of how we have an achrayus one for another, of what a Ganef has to do to rectify what he did wrong. It is in this Parasha that the Psukim are crying out to us, make sure to be careful with these halachis, because if not, you're going to have to rectify it the hard way. And that's why it's Bidafka Parshas Mishpatim. That is the appropriate place for the Zohar to tell us, here is the secrets of all Gilgulim. Because this is the Parsha that cries out, Yesh Din v'Yesh Dayin. Saif Kol Saif, everything has to come back to its source. Do it the easy way. And again, we see that Yisod with the Parsha of Dayanim, the Indian of justice, Ben Adam L'Chaveroi, the arbitrator making sure that no one steals from the other, bringing sides together. That is the hachana for Kabbalah Satira, because Kabbalah Satira creates a whole new criteria. Kabbalah Satira, which is the purpose of the Bria, sets the guideline. And the guideline is, you have a bchira, you can steal, you can rob, you can lie, you can swear falsely, but ultimately you're going to have to pay it back. And that's not just Ben Adam L'Chaveroi, it's Ben Adam L'Makom as well. Every person has a task that he has to accomplish. Every person has a letter in the Sefer Torah. Kabbalah Satira was to all of us. We were all standing there. Not just in concept, not just in theory. The Shloach Kodesh says, in a tangible way, we were b'metzias there. V'haraya, if someone swears that he's going to fulfill a mitzvah, technically speaking, the shvuah does not take effect. Why? Because kvar nishba v'yoyned mehar sinai, the Gemara says. And the rule is that someone swears that he's going to do something, and follows that with an identical shavua that he's going to swear to do that thing, the second shavua does not take effect. There is an existing shavua in its place. So therefore, if I swear to put on tefillin, the shvur does not take effect, because I have already sworn to put on tefillin when I answered not for the nishma. Zok the Shlah, so it's not just theory, it's a metzius. We were there by Har Sinai, and every single yid was given his particular mission, and by design, the chelik ha-Torah that aligns itself to his neshama. And each yid has his tafkid, has his objective in the Seder HaBriya for Klal Yisrael that he has to do for Klal Yisrael. That he has to be Masakin in this world. And until we do so, we will constantly be sent out again and again until we get it straight. We've mentioned this many times. The Chavetz Chaim of the Sha'ar Tzion says, why do we read Master Yain on Yom Kippur? Who was Yain? The Gemara says in the Masechta Sanhedrin, he was the child that passed away, and Eliyahu Hanavi brought him back to life. So you see, Yaina, for whatever reason, was uncomfortable with his mission down here on this world. He tried to get away, to get back to that world, but he was sent back. Later, when he got his mission, he didn't want to go to tell the people of Nineveh that they have to do tshuva or else. So he figured he's going to run away. He'll run away from Eretz Yisrael. And the Nevuah, for the most part, is only in Eretz Yisrael. But he couldn't run away. The depth of the sea could not hide him. The whole Bria will work to bring Yaina back. Being thrown into an ocean is not going to help. Soif kol soif, you will have to fulfill your mission. You will constantly be brought back until you do it. Dr. Chavetz Chaim, that's why we would have to read this on Yom Kippur to remind us, Klal Yisrael, do tshuva. Think what your talents are, think what you're supposed to do, and go out and do it, because it won't help running away. Soif kol soif, you're going to be sent back again and again until you and I accomplish what we are supposed to accomplish. And clearly there is something that you and I can accomplish that no one else can. The haraya, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made us. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't make things that are extra, that they sound explains. If we exist, if anyone exists, that's the greatest proof that there is something he or she can do that no one else in the world can. This Fasemus is Medayik, the Pasuk says, V'chol ha'am royim. Royim is not a lashon of past, it is a lashon of present, lashon haiva. It wasn't just then, says the Fasemus, B'chol ha'doyos, throughout all the generations, a yid can be zoicha to see Matan Torah. The Mishnah tells us, prepare yourself to learn Torah, for it is not a Yerusha for you. It's not an inheritance that comes automatically. The Yemiyam is asked, for the Pasuk does say, Moirasha Kehilas Yaakov, so it is an inheritance to a certain degree. And the answer is, says the Beis Yisrael, that if a person tries hard enough to be Mekabel the Torah, if there is enough of a yearning within you to commit yourself to Torah, then you will be Zoicha to inherit it. It is an inheritance, but no one's going to knock on your door to give it to you. You have to go out and seek it and be Mekabel it, and then you'll be Zoicha, to yashin it. Yisro said about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this is the Lashon of the Mechilta, I've recognized HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the past. Yisro wasn't new to Emunah. He had already thrown away all the Avodah Zarahs even before he came to the Midbar. But the Achshav B'Yoysa. But now I recognize him even more. In other words, now I came to a higher level of faith. The Yoresh Rebbe Chaim explains, yes, Yisro had separated himself from Avodah Zarah until now. As a matter of fact, everyone else was so angry at him that that's why they put him into Chayrim. That's why his daughters had to go and draw water and to take care of their father's sheep. Yisro had separated himself from Avodah Zarah and paid a price for it. However, his decision to sever his ties with the Avodah Zarah until now was a result of Chakira, his own conclusion. It wasn't Emunah the way we would refer to Emunah. Simply, we believe because we have a Yiddish neshama. Because we're Mekabel the Messiah from our parents. That's what Yisro meant. He said, Mekira Yisi L'Shiyavar. I came to this conclusion from beforehand, that there has to be a Rebbeinu Shalom on the world. But that was a matter of logic to me. Yachshav B'Yoysa. Now my Emunah means more to me, because it's not just a question of logic. It's a question of being part of Klal Yisrael. The Gemara in the Masechta Sanhedrin defines who is an Apikaris. One of the things that makes someone an Apikaris is someone who says, Ein Tchiyas HaNesim Min HaTorah. That means he doesn't believe in Tchiyas HaNesim. However, Rashi stresses someone who doesn't believe in Tchiyas HaNesim Min HaTorah, even someone who agrees and believes that the Nesim will come to life, but holds that it's not merumas in the Torah, is also considered a kaifer. And so here's a person who believes in Chiyas HaMesim, but because he does not believe that it's merumas in the Torah, therefore he still remains in the status of an Afikaris. In other words, emunah that doesn't come from the Torah is not the kind of emunah that we talk about when we say this year is a maimin b'HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Baal Shem Tov said, despite all of his hasagas, despite all of the Ruach HaKodesh, and all of the Olam Yisro Yainim that he toured, Hineni Pesi Umayna, I'm a fool who believes. Now he didn't mean to say fool over here in a negative context. He meant to say, despite all the madregas, despite all the Ruach HaKodesh, the basis of my emunah is my father taught it to me, and his father taught it to him, and his father taught it to him, all the way up until Har Sinai, and it's part of my neshama. It is not based on intellect. The Ber Moshe explains, look at the pasuk, Lo kein avdi Moshe, b'chol deisi nemanu. What is the madrega of Moshe? He's trusted. He is a maimin. He has a emunah in Hashem. The Rebbeinu Hashem spoke to him. And unlike any other Navi, Kadosh Baruch Hu gave him clear visions, no riddles that he had to figure out. But despite all of that, despite the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu was zeicha to a communication with the Rebbeinu Hashem that no other Yilud Isha ever has or ever will, but Moshe Rabbeinu's greatness is described in the form of the Chaldeisi Nemanhu, Emunah Pshuta, simple Emunah. I believe. Emunah Pshuta. That's what the pasuk says. Yibein Shnei HaKeruvim Vayedaber Elav. The Gemara Masechta Sukkah tells us that the face of the Keruvim and the Aron were like the face of a child. Even though Vayedaber Elav, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is speaking to Moshe Kaviyachol Peh El Peh, but Moshe's Emunah is based on the Emunah of a child. Tinei Tinik. A simple, wholesome, pure belief in Hashem. And in a sense, this is a little bit of a taina on Yisro. Right after Yisro's advice about organizing Klal Yisrael into branches and the Sari Olafim and the Sari Meis and different levels of asking shilas. So the pasuk says, "Yishlach Moshe Chayis, Nevi Yelech Le'Elatzai." Why did Moshe Rabbeinu send his father-in-law away? Why did he send him back home? So Rashi says to be Megayer, the name is Shvachle, but still, you have to wonder about the fact that here you have Yisro coming for Kabbalah Satayah, you have this wonderful advice that he gave, and everything is set up, and it's working so efficiently and so perfectly, and now Moshe Rabbeinu has time for himself. He will no longer wither away, and right away the response to that is Yisro is sent away. So many Mefarshim say, the Lamaisa there was somewhat of a tiny here that Moshe Rabbeinu had, because although everything was so much more efficient, there was a chain of command, you had your local rabbi task, he had his rabbi task, but Klal Yisrael lost out. Granted, before Yisro came, it was unorganized, and may have even been havoc. It was impossible to get an appointment. You had people standing all day trying to get in a word with Moshe Rabbeinu, but Saif called Saif. All of Klal Yisrael had a direct connection, direct shaychus to Moshe Rabbeinu. And as a result, the emunah that they were able to draw was on a higher level. In all due respect to Yisro, he did the logical thing, not the emotional thing. Are you going to ask a shayla? But Moshe Rabbeinu would have not managed. I mean, his father-in-law told him, you're going to collapse. You can't go on like this from morning until night with everyone asking you shaylas. Schacter Kabrina, had his father-in-law not said that, had he not instituted this new system, Moshe would have had the siyata d'shmaya to go on. Once he asked the question, so it is sort of already surfaced, so it made sense to organize it. But the whole plan over here of the Sari Alof and the Sari Meis, it wasn't such a genius, Aluya Sheinfall. Yisro thought of it. Other Yidden also thought of it. Yisro implemented it. Yisro suggested it. And others didn't suggest it because everyone knew. Arranging office hours and arranging people to report to it was all nice and beautiful and sweet. And it was all very logical and practical. I mean, after all, if it was a simple question that a lower class person could answer, why bother Moshe Rabbeinu? After all, Moshe Rabbeinu is going to give him the same answer. But there's a difference. Yes, the Sori Olaf and Sori Neas, whoever it was, up the line, may have given them the same answer that Moshe Rabbeinu would give them. When you hear an answer from Moshe Rabbeinu, you don't just hear an answer. There's a certain level of emunah that is transmitted. A certain connection to Torah, to Kabbalah, to Torah, to belief in the Rabbeinu Shalom. And that you can't explain in words. So as much as Yisro also felt it, as much as his level of emunah was different once he came to the Midbar, but L'maisa, he still came from an outside kind of ideology, and he tried to apply that efficiency to the distribution of Yediyas Torah to Klal Yisrael, and Klal Yisrael would lose out as a result. And indeed, later on, we'll find Moshe Rabbeinu will give Musar to Klal Yisrael about this. Why did you agree? Why didn't you argue and say that we want to hear Torah straight from Moshe Rabbeinu? The Ber Moshe asks what many Mefarshim ask: how come it's Anochi Hashem Elokecha Asher Tzitzicha Me'eretz Mitzrayim as opposed to Anochi Hashem Elokecha Asher Berasi Shemayim V'Aretz? Why didn't Hashem Yisbarach identify himself as the creator of the world? And the answer is basically what we're saying until now. There are guys who believe, at least some do, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. That's one level of emunah. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving Klal Yisrael a whole different kind of emunah. Not an emunah that's based on theory, not an emunah that's based on intellect, not an emunah that's based on some type of a logic that if something is created, it would have to have had a creator and so on. Our emunah is based on Yetzias Mitzrayim. Fact. We were in Galus. HaKadosh Baruch Hu came and took us out. Klal Yisrael saw the Rabbeinu Shalom. Klal Yisrael saw the miracles of Yetzias Mitzrayim. And the miracles of Yetzias Mitzrayim were sent out into this world, as the Ramban explains at the end of Parshas Bo, in a way that it becomes the source of our emunah forever after. Every Yiddish heart to this day is filled with emunah, fueled with emunah, through Yetzias Mitzrayim, leading up to Matan Torah. Okay, we can be exposed to alien environments. We can engage in certain actions that cover up that emunah. So we have to do tshuva. But a Yid has to remember, even if Chas V'Shalom Tzemach Tzvekas, deep down in his heart, he believes it's a fact of life. It's part of his genes. And that emunah pshuta is Anochi Hashem Elokecha Asher Tzitzicha Me'eretz Mitzrayim more so than Anochi Hashem Elokecha that created Shemayim V'Aretz. The Chaskel Levenstein, the Panavich Meshgiach, would say, emunah in the Metzias of a Bari Olam is not emunah shleimi yet. Goyim also believe, at least some of them do. The Messiah of emunah is the emunah in Hashgacha Pratis, that every little thing that happens in our life is dictated by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That nothing happens by chance. That Soif Kosoif, everything comes to an accounting. That everything is Mida Keneged Mida, although HaKadosh Baruch Hu works on his own timetable. And that's the emunah of the 10 Makkos that were each Mida Keneged Mida. That's the emunah of Kriyas Yamsef, where every ounce of pain that the Mitzrayim had to endure was measured, spoolful for spoolful, depending on their actions. This is the emunah of Hashgacha Pratius. This is the emunah of Yetzias Mitzrayim. Now it's interesting to note, we know that these weeks, Shemais, Ve'era, Boi, B'Shalach, Yisro, Mishpatim, are the weeks of Shevavim. The first letters of these parshiyos spell Shevavim. Shevavim means to do tshuva, but the Rizal says they're special weeks. Because the Zohar HaKadosh tells us that we don't just read a parsha. The Torah just wasn't broken up for practical reasons into 50 somewhat parshiyos to read throughout the year. Every week is crowned with that parsha. Our essence is in the parsha of the week. Parshas Boi, the Chayza said, has the Kiddush of Pesach. Parshas B'Shalach, the Kiddush of Shvi Shel Pesach. Parshas Yisro, the Kiddush of Shavuos. Now these weeks that Klal Yisrael was in Mitzrayim and the HaKadosh Baruch Hu took them out and the HaKadosh Baruch Hu made his presence clear to them, when Klal Yisrael relives this, we relive it as well. The Yiddish Neshama is particularly fueled by the emunah that is injected into us through the emunah that was injected into our avos in the course of Yetzias Mitzrayim leading up to Matan Torah. That's why these weeks are considered to be special weeks to do tshuva, so that we can associate ourselves more with the Yidden in Mitzrayim who kept their Loshain, who kept their shame, who kept their Jewish identity, who might never themselves not to be nichshul chas v'shalom in any Indian of Tuma. Achasayu Pirsum HaKasiv. There was only one, and even she was the Shoigeg. It's extremely crucial. The Rizal says that we associate ourselves to our Avos, to emulating their actions, especially these weeks. In a sense, we're sort of at the gas station to be filled up with Amunah while we read these Pashiyas. Now, the Tzaddik says an amazing thing. He says, the Ikr, it's from Shemais through Yisro, that we have to do tshuva, that we have to be mispal to be Zaycha to Amunah. Even though Mishpatim is also officially included in the union of Shaidah, but the Tzaddik explains this already after the fact. That's after Kabbalah Satayr. Mishpatim deals with someone who is sold for an evidence that has to be redeemed. Mishpatim deals with damages and how those damages can be rectified. Mishpatim is for those who sort of missed the boat during these weeks. And we try to sort of fit them in and fix it for them. But the main thing is to really stop and say, Rabbeinu Shalom, give me Amunah before Pashas Mishpatim. In these weeks that lead up to the climax of Kabbalah Satayr in this week's Pasha. So now that it's still Pashas Yisro, and I want to have Amunah, and I want to work on my Amunah, how do I do it? So let me share with you some thoughts from the Kuntres Amunah Ubetachan, from the Lachowitzer. He titled the pasuk in Tehillim, Hemanti ki adadeh. Hemanti, a Yid can sort of generate the Amunah through Dibur, through saying the Ani Mamin B'Amunah Shalema. You can be Zaycha to Amunah Shalem. The Navi Yirmiyah says, Avdehu Amunah Nichris Amitiyah. Why was the Amunah lost to them? Because it was cut off from their mouths. If a Yid would talk and say, Rabbeinu Shalom, please, I know deep down in my heart I believe in you, and he would repeat the Ani Mamin again and again, then the Amunah will come back to him. The Gemara in the Masechtas Shabbos says, Yisrael maminim, denei maminim. Denei, he teaches the Lashon of Havon, the Lashon of understanding. But even when a Yid feels that his Amunah is on a low, or he's in a low, so to speak, and he's grasping for Amunah, a Yid says Ani Mamin. He understands that his whole tikkun, his whole life is based on Amunah. He's ma'imel l'chol ha'pachas b'peh. We've mentioned it many times. The Steipler writes, the Zmirais of Shabbos is a tremendous skula for Amunah. The Tfilos of Shabbos, where Chazal tell us, Kol Hashem Shabbos Ki Elchaseh Efaloi V'Davar Dezor Kedar En Shmeichel Eloi, answering Amen Yehi Shmei Rabba, the Koram, the Koyach with Kavona brings back the Amunah, saying Pashas Hazinu is a skula for Amunah. Now it's interesting, Reb Tzaddik says that these 5 Pashiyos leading up till Pashas Mishpatim all correspond to the 5 times the word Or, light, is mentioned in Ma'aseh Bereshis. That means, as Reb Tzaddik explains, the 5th and final time the word Or is mentioned in Ma'aseh Bereshis, the Yikra Lakim Li'or Yain, corresponds to Pashas Yisro, the 5th Pasha in the series of Shezavim. The Yikra Lakim Li'or Yain, the Gemara in Masechtas Pesachim, explains, teaches that pasuk, HaKadosh Baruch Hu called light and commanded light to be employed in what we know as day. In other words, HaKadosh Baruch Hu established in the heart of a Yid a kind of Amunah, a kind of light that really never gets ruined. It could get covered, but it never gets ruined. And that's why this is Haftarah, says Rav Tzaddik is. V'yata altira avdi Yaakov. Don't fear my Aved Yaakov. Ki hineni Mashiach meirachak. I will save you even from the distance. Meaning, as far as Klal Yisrael falls, somehow the Emunah is there. I have a friend who spent a Shabbos in a small little town in Russia a couple of weeks ago, and he described to me the thirst that people were coming, begging to hear every word of Torah, to learn how to daven. Think about this. The colossal demon, the Soviet Union, for 70 years, relentlessly pounded away at every ounce of Amunah. And still you have Yidden that are asking, tell me a Dvar Torah, teach me more. Albeit we see that when they leave and they're exposed to alien environments, like all of us, the Amunah gets covered up. It's more difficult to dig in and find that Pintele Yid. But it appears, as many suggest, when you find these same Yidden in their original source, before they're exposed to Western culture and all of its tightness and temptations, that Pintele Yid, that Nakuda of Amunah in the heart is still there. The mighty Soviet Union lays in ashes, and the Yiddish Emunah continues to beckon. The flame is never extinguished. B'chol yom, every single day, a baskol rings out from Har Chayil, from Har Sinai, and says, Oilahem l'briyas mi'al bayna shel Torah. Who hears this baskol? Sagt the Baal Shem Tov, we all do. Every single day, a Yid has a certain feeling, let me get my life together, let me daven a better Shemini Esrei, or a certain feeling of, I didn't learn a word yesterday, or I could have done better with that act of chesed. Something, a little nakud that everyone has every single day. You don't know it. But that's the baskol your neshama is hearing, but you have to have seichel to know how to respond to it. Dr. Safenis Asher Anochi Mitzamcha Hayoim refers to the B'chol Yoim, baskol yotze mihachayev. When the Rebbeinu Shalom gave the Torah and Har Sinai, the Rebbeinu Shalom gave it with a plan of what every Yid is going to endure until Mashiach comes. And for each day there is a Hisayrus and a Nekuda waiting to be applied for that day if we have seichel to know how to look for it. In Parsha Shemais we find Vayemer Yisro LaMoshe Lech LeShalom. The Gemara says in Masechtas Brachos, Shehanifter Mechazei Tzarach Loy Meloi Lech LeShalom. However, the Hanifter Min Hames says Bishalom, Lech Bishalom, as opposed to LeShalom. LeShalom means go to peace. To the Mace, the bracha is Bishalom, that he should already be in a matzif of Shalom, of Menucha. The daigas of the world are over. Now, hopefully, the neshama is ready to be makabel, the ultimate menucha, the ultimate tainug of Olam Haba, and so on. So how come in Parshas Yisro, when Yisro is giving the advice to Moshe Rabbeinu about appointing judges, so the pasuk says, "V'gam kol ha'am hazeh al makomo yavoi bishalom." It should have said lishalom. So the people over there were still alive. And for the Chavetz Chaim Amoyer de Gavart. The whole inyan of appointing Dayanim accomplishes primarily what? To straighten out Inyane Marminis. Someone stole something from someone overpressured someone else for a sale, whatever the case may be, Lishtvei de Salam Mishpat Tzedek. In other words, the purpose of these Dayanim and the sequence of Dayanim, the chain of command, was to make sure that every individual has an opportunity to straighten out his financial matters, to make sure that they're pure, clean, and kosher. Dr. Chavetz Chaim, it's brought down in the Svarim HaKadoshim that if someone steals from someone else, even a shava pruta, he has to come down the Gilgal again to this world in order to pay back that five. No neshama comes to his ultimate menucha until all financial matters are 100% clarified. A single penny. It could be devastating in Shemayim if it wound up in the wrong pocket. No one can come to his tikkun until he fulfills the heishid as gzela shegazel. Return the gezela, return the stolen property that you stole. As a result, Yisro was very frankly suggesting that if you appoint the appropriate dayanim that are going to judge between one person and another, therefore, a person lives out his life in this world and he can come to his makom menucha and stay there in Olam Haba. He isn't forced to have to come down again. And that was the bracha. Do this right with the dayanim, and therefore, v'gam kol ha'am hazeh al makomo yavoi b'shalom. When they pass away, it'll be straight to a makom menucha in Gan Eden. They won't have any sorrow. They won't have to be sent down here again. Many ask, how come today there's no Chassam Sofer, there's no Rebbe Akiva Eiger? Well, for those who ask this question, the Torah stressed that we are mechuyos to go al ha'shofet asher yeh b'yom hahem, because the emes is, in every generation, everyone always points to the previous generation that says that we don't have today the tzaddikim of yesteryear. That's a ma'aseh hayetzer. It's much easier to respect the Rebbe Akiva Eiger and the Chassam Sofer. Rebbe Akiva Eiger and the Chassam Sofer aren't knocking on our door right now and asking for nedavos. Rebbe Akiva Eiger and the Chassam Sofer aren't giving us shmuzin and telling us what we aren't supposed to have in our houses. It's much easier to respect them than it is to respect the Rav of my shul or my Rosh Yeshiva or my Rebbe and so on. So this is human nature. Still, let's address this question. The fact is, we have tzaddikim of previous generations who were Bali Ruach HaKodesh, and today also there's an inyan of the Siyata D'Shmaya, but can we say that we have today the same stories, the same lifestyle of previous generations? So when a person asks this question, let's assume that it's a legitimate question for a moment. The argument is The leaders of the generation aren't doing their job. Sagt aber der Sam Seifer from this week's parasha, think twice before you ask the question, because if indeed it is a criticism, the criticism may just be levied against you, not against your Rav. Why so? Well, the pasuk says, "Kiel and davar boilai the shafadati, and I will judge bein ishu bein reyehu v'hidati es chukei u'elikim v'yesteraisa." The Gemara says in the Masechta Sotah that somebody, that person really was worthy that the Shekhinah should rest on him. That person should have had Ruach HaKodesh. His daughter is not worthy of it. He, as an individual, has all of the merits, all of the different steps in the Mesilas Yesharim that leads up to Ruach HaKodesh. He's mastered it. He's just in the wrong generation. It's a chronological problem. So we see from this Gemara, if the Gemara made that observation about a certain individual, it applies to many individuals. But more so, it's a lesson to the generation. That when the dar is not worthy, the Gadol Hadar doesn't get all of the Hasagais, he doesn't get all of the Madregais that he may be entitled to. Moshe Rabbeinu, the Melamed Chukei Elikim, the one who clearly tells over the word of the Rabbeinu Shalom and teaches it to Klal Yisrael, whose nevuah has to be crystal clear, unlike the other prophets, whose nevuah would come in the form of a mashal, in the form of a dream, not by Moshe Rabbeinu. By Moshe Rabbeinu was a conversation with the Rabbeinu Shalom. If not, the Torah wouldn't be a Torah Shalom. In order for Moshe Rabbeinu to continue to receive the Torah on this level, in order to be able to convey it to Klal Yisrael has to be up to a certain madrega. And if Klal Yisrael is not the Aguda Echa, particularly when it comes to Inyanim Shebein Ish L'Chaveiroi, then Moshe Rabbeinu would not have the nevuah that he needs in order to be able to convey the Torah, and as a result, he would not be able to teach them the Chukei Elikim. Therefore, Zakter Sam Sofer, and this appears in the Droshes Sam Sofer Chelik Aleph Kuf Yura Mitbei. Ki yiyah lahem davar. If there's an issue amongst you, if something is going on between two friends, if something is going on between one Yid and another Yid, don't think it's just an issue between you and him. There's some Lashon Hara, some Mechila, some Geneva, some Gzela. Rather, by a lie, that comes to me, that affects me. I can feel in my Madrega when there's something wrong between one Yid and another Yid. And therefore Moshe Rabbeinu says it's going to have to be this way. First, v'shafadati ben ishu ben re'eh. First, I'm going to have to judge between man and his friend. You're going to have to come to me, spell out your differences, and we're going to have to settle. We're going to have to compromise. We're going to have to reach agreements. There's going to have to be an understanding. There's going to have to be compensation for damages. And once we straighten all of that out, once there is mechila in your heart, only then can I perceive the nevuah in its purest form, and as a result, can I teach you the Torah? But if you don't get your act together, says Moshe Rabbeinu, I won't be able to understand what to teach you. So you ask why today perhaps we are lacking in Tzaddikim Bali Ruach HaKodesh, at least relative to previous generations? Perhaps the question should be addressed to us, not to the Tzaddikim. And indeed, Moshe Rabbeinu's first nevuah, when he saw the fire in the snare, comes after he wandered off into the midbar. And why did he wander off in the midbar? Rashi makes a point of saying to make sure that the sheep that he was taking care of don't pasture from fields that belong to anybody. Seems like a rather trivial point to bring up over here when Moshe Rabbeinu is now going to have his first experience of the nevuah that's going to lead to Yetzias Mitzrayim, to the birth of Klal Yisrael, that he took his sheep into the midbar to graze. And the answer is no, it's not trivial. The tahara in the form of mamain was a prerequisite for his nevuah. He would have never had the nevuah without that. Now here we come to a very difficult topic. There are many speeches, many articles, many opinions as to lo yaleinu v'lo yalechem, the terrible, devastating problem of children that are getting lost, that are on the streets. And there are so many opinions by mechanchim by people that are Isaac, and everyone means L'Shem Shemayim, and everyone has to be listened to, and all advice has to be applied. But by the same token, anyone who suggests that there's one problem over here and one solution that applies across the board is completely missing the point. For some children, the problem is a lack of love. For others, it's a lack of discipline. Sometimes it's the home, sometimes it's the yeshiva, and sometimes it's none of the above. There are no rules. The Satmar Chaim once pointed out, there is no one that had a better chinuch than Esav Harosh. And there was no one who had a worse chinuch than Avraham Avinu. Esav turned out to be Esav, and Avraham turned out to be Avraham. That doesn't mean we shouldn't try to be mechanech our children. That means that no one has any right to point a finger at anyone, because no one really knows what the underlying cause is in any given situation. Somebody once came to the Imri Emes crying. He had never chassan. That quote went off the derech. And someone mentioned something to him, a very insensitive remark. He told him, well, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So the Imri Emes told this person who was crying, this besieged father, he said to him, tell that person that during a storm, when the winds are blowing and there are hurricanes blowing, an apple can be found very, very far from the tree. Satmar Chaim once said by a meeting in the Satmar Yeshiva, you should know like this, there are 10% of all children that are going to be good regardless of what you do with them. And there are 10% of all children, Rahman al-Islam, that are going to wind up in the wrong place regardless of how many things you do right. The issue is, what do we do with all the children in the middle? In other words, of course, there are times more discipline is necessary, there are times more love is necessary, there are times more understanding is necessary. But anyone that says that in any given case, I know what the problem is, probably does not know what the problem is. The Arachama, Pirish, and the Zohar brings that there are certain neshamas that are destined for certain families. And we see this in the course of history. Some of the greatest tzaddikim grew out of families that were not the best families. And Rahman al-Islam, you have the same thing in the reverse. Chizkiyahu Melech Yehuda knew that he was going to have a son, a Rasha. He didn't want to have children because of that. Yeshaya Navi told him, you're going to lose your life. You have no business mixing into HaKadosh Baruch Hu's mitzvahs. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said you have a mitzvah of Prudavu, B'Harikashi D'Rachman Allah Malach. So Chizkiyahu Melech said, okay, give me your daughter, perhaps in my schos and in your schos, will be zoicha to a good child. And he married Yeshaya's daughter. And Chizkiyahu did everything right. He was Meisanevish himself for chinuch. Any suggestion in any article, Chizkiyahu HaMelech was Mekayim. He gave his son all the discipline, all the love, all the right rebellion that was necessary. He took his child to yeshiva every single day to make sure everything was just right. Yet it didn't help. Again, not chas v'shalom to say that we shouldn't try our utmost and do everything within our power. But on the other hand, when it comes to judging others, know that because someone has a problem, that does not mean that he did something wrong. And there are those that say, why? Why is it happening? B'zman hazeh. So if you want to talk about the negative influences, the Reshus Harabim that creeps into our houses, internet, television, videos, the horrible dangers that a child is exposed to, the horrific availability of things of the worst kind. At least if you talk about that aspect, so there's a practical twist to it. So we have to be mitzvah nefesh ourselves. A, to do the proper bir chametz in our house, and B, to offer alternatives of Kiddusha, of Simchas HaTorah, Simchas HaChaim. But at least you have those that offer practical suggestions, and they point out the practical problems. So you can deal with it in a realistic way. The problem is you have those that venture to say why this generation is suffering with this particular plague. And they say it's because of this and it's because of that chait. Let me tell you what I once heard. There was a terrible tragedy in Camp Bershraga. And there was a Nasifa, and Rabbi Yaakov came up to speak. And Rabbi Yaakov said that after the Kufa of Nevi'im, if anyone gets up and he says for sure that this is the reason there's a certain problem, he's over the lab of Leisainu. Are you a Navi? Do you know the Nevi'im? Knew exactly why certain problems were coming. We can only venture to suggest. And then Rabbi Yaakov went on to speak. He went on to speak about what we have to be misakein, but what we can work on. So this whole prelude to what I'm going to say now is really a disclaimer. I am definitely not the one to suggest what the problem of our generation is. But then again, we have to look into it and look to see what tzaddikim of yesteryear told us. And perhaps somewhere, somehow, it may be nogeya. Not chas v'shalom to suggest in any mean or form that it's necessarily nogeya to any individual. Having said all of this, the Bnei Yissaschar brings from the Mendel of Rimenov. Why can it happen that a child goes off the derech? He was nispate min hagezel. He was served food that was purchased with money, and that money was not earned in a kosher fashion. A little bit of a dreidel, a little bit of a lie, a little bit of stealing, a little bit of fixing the book so that the other partner doesn't see or won't understand. Just a little. You bring that money home, you give it to your wife, she goes shopping with it. Dr. Mendel of Rimenov, you don't know what effect that could possibly have on a child. It's like emailing a virus into someone's computer, and whatever he's going to do, it's going to keep coming up and distorting things. It's in the bloodstream. If the Samseifer tells us, Moshe Rabbeinu pleads with Claudia, so I won't get my nevuah clearly until you cleanse your financial matters, that has to be v'shefadati ben ishu ben re'eu before it can be v'idati eschuke olekimi as teraisav. If it affects Moshe Rabbeinu, how does it affect our children? So we have to have an open ear to what everyone writes or what everyone says and apply any positive thing we can pick up. But by the same token, understand that sometimes there can be an underlying problem that has nothing to do with attitude. It has to do with the reality. When a father, the same father mentioned earlier, was crying to the Satmar Rav Zochen Levracha and said, L'maisa, but what can I do? The Satmar Rav told him, say Tillim every day and cry. And let your child or children see the way you're crying when you're saying Tillim for their sake. In his opinion, that can have more of a positive effect than anything else. The Yerushalayim HaKadosh asks, why was Yisro rewarded with such a tremendous reward? The whole Parsha of Matan Torah is named after him. And the Achana to Matan Torah is Yisro's advice and Eitzah, how to set up the Bezdin. Okay, we have a certain amount of Akaras Atayv, a tremendous amount of Akaras Atayv to Yisro. But Ad Kedei Kach, that the Parsha of Matan Torah should be called Parshas Yisro. But the Yerushalayim HaKadosh, in all due respect to Yisro, and indeed the gratitude that is due to him, there's another message over here. The message is that we, Klal Yisrael, do not claim to be smarter than anyone else. Chachma, wisdom, yesh chachma b'goyim tam. There's nothing wrong with saying that there are goyim who are smarter than us, as the Yerushalayim HaKadosh. The Haraya took Yisro, the outsider, to come in and to machen seder, to organize things. And we accept his advice. You're right, that's the way to do it. Yisro comes in as a consultant on organizational management, and we take his advice. You're smarter than us. And that is why it is this parsha, that is the parsha of Matan Torah, of Yerushalayim HaKadosh, to explain that HaKadosh Baruch Hu picked Klal Yisrael for Matan Torah not because we are smarter than anyone. We're not smarter than anyone. Rather, HaKadosh Baruch Hu picked Klal Yisrael as a chesed elyon, as a special ahava to the avos, as a result of our heritage to scream Nasiv and Ishman to be Mekabel Torah. We have to listen to advice. But we also have to understand that the yesod of Klal Yisrael is not our chachma. The yesod of Klal Yisrael is our commitment, our feeling. And therefore, when we look to struggle with difficult problems, if not the most difficult problems, then a Yid has to remember the yesod, ha-yesodos is. Rabbeinu Shalom, help. You picked us. We want to transmit Torah. Bail us out. And once we understand that, then we can look for eitzos. But if it's the other way around, then we're missing the very point of the very name of our Seder. It is said that originally Rav Meir Shapiro, Zecher Tzadik L'Vracha, approached the Imrei Emes, the Ger Rebbe, and wanted him to initiate the Daf Yomi. The argument was that the Ger Rebbe, who represented massive amounts of Hasidim, for him to introduce the idea of Daf Yomi, that would start it off with a real bang. It would be launched with tremendous prestige and power. Now, the Imrei Emes was one of the great proponents of Daf Yomi. The Imrei Emes himself was a Talmid Chacham, Noira V'Yadir, and one of the greatest Masmidim of his time. And indeed, while the Imrei Emes pushed Daf Yomi full throttle, to the point where an announcement was made in Ger, Rosh Hashanah at night, that the Rebbe is now beginning the Daf Yomi cycle, and he is learning Masechtas Brachas Daf Beis. So for all those who wish to follow, begin now. The Imrei Emes, however, in his infinite wisdom, suggested that he not be the one that officially introduces the idea. His concern was people may be under the impression that it is a project of a specific Chassidus, albeit definitely in numbers it was the greatest Chassidus of its time, but Daf Yomi was going to be a project of Klal Yisrael. And the Imrei Emes did not want it to be identified as any specific group, organization. He didn't want it to be limited to a specific aspect of Klal Yisrael. This was Klal Yisrael's project. It doesn't make a difference who you are or where you come from. When you sit down to learn this Black Gemara, you are now joining, you are learning Torah B'tzibur with tens of thousands of others. And of course, Baruch Hashem, with each cycle, that multiplies. Kain Yirbu. Now this idea that the Imrei Emes had, not to individualize Daf Yomi, has its origins in the essence of Kabbalas HaTorah. The pasuk says, "Bayoyim hazeh bo'u midbar Sinai." Rabbi Yisrael Salanter explained the Torah was given to Klal Yisrael, b'dafka in a desert. No individual country raised its flag over that desert. Not only that, Shavuos is the only Yom Tov where the issue of which day is Shavuos is in dispute. There are a whole host of different shittas in the Gemara, but basically it was either the 6th day of Sivan or the 7th day of Sivan. And Shavuos is not always on the same day. Why is this, says Rabbi Yisrael Salanter? How come no specific country? How come no specific time? It is to teach us that the Torah HaKadoshah is not individualized to any specific aspect of Klal Yisrael or to any particular time period within a person's life. What is, of course, the Yetzer Hara's greatest trick? His greatest ploy is when a person thinks, tomorrow would be a great day to start. Because if you keep saying the word tomorrow, you never start. And that's why the Beis Avram says, the pasuk says, in regard to Kabbalas HaTorah, v'kidashtem hayoim u'machar. You will raise your levels of holiness, you will sanctify yourselves today and tomorrow. Moshe Rabbeinu was letting Klal Yisrael know, if you're going to be serious about Kabbalas HaTorah, avoid the trap of tomorrow. It has to be v'kidashtem hayoim. Right now, today, tomorrow as well. But never go with the mindset that tomorrow is a good day to begin, because the term tomorrow can be perpetual. You'll always be beginning tomorrow, and you'll never reach it. And that is why at the end of Parshas B'Shalach, as a hachana to Parshas Yisro, we have the battle with Amalek, and what were Moshe Rabbeinu's instructions to Yeshua? B'char lanu anoshim, v'tzei hilachem b'Amalek machar, and go and battle with Amalek's greatest power, his most successful trap, and that is the promotion of Mahar. Tomorrow would be a great time to begin. You have to battle that tomorrow as a hachana to Kabbalas HaTorah. V'yom hazeh bo'u midbar Sinai. Rashi brings the medrash, ma b'yom hazeh. Why does it say on this day you came to Midbar Sinai? Shiyu divrei Torah chadashim alecha. The words of Torah have to be always new to us. Ki ilu hayoyim nitnam, as if they were given today. Of course, the pasha of the time is, it's like when you get something very new, you appreciate it first at the beginning. Lahavdul, a person gets a new pair of shoes. First you put it into the box every single night. One shoe going in one direction, the other shoe going in the other direction, the wax paper in between. You put it on with a shoehorn. You appreciate it. It's something new. It's shiny. It doesn't have creases yet. A couple of days down the road, they don't go into the box anymore. They go under the bed. The shoehorn is sometimes used, sometimes not used. And like a week later, you're in a rush in the morning and you find one shoe here, one shoe there, and your foot goes into it, squashing down the back of the shoe, working its way in, and you have other digits besides for your shoe. That's human nature. The longer you have something, it sort of gets devaluated in terms of your impression on it. And you begin to take things for granted. So the Pashup Pshat is, Ma'adi Yom Hazeh, that the words of Torah, if you can forgive the analogy, the words of Torah have to be brand new. But Rabbi Sol Salamter says there's somewhat of a tifer of art here as well. Because remember, when you're going to wake up in the morning, when you're going to think about going to that shiur, when you're going to think about sitting down and learning with your child, when you're going to think about setting up that new chavrusa, the Yetzer Hara will have all sorts of wonderful ideas why next week, why tomorrow would be a great time to start. And this is where he's going to trap you. Here on vacation I should learn. Here during this business trip I should learn. Here during this difficult time that I'm going through I should learn. Tomorrow when things settle down, that'll be a good time to start. Adarabah. It was given to you to learn today. Today is not such a good time. Okay, that's your nisayon, to see whether you can do it today, where you perceive it as not being such a good time. And indeed, perhaps, if you'll try it, you will then realize that this is the very instrument that is going to turn the today into a good time. You said that today you weren't in the mood. You said that today you were too broken. But these are the very tools that is limit HaTorah that is going to fix your spirit, that is going to give you that simcha. And indeed, that's the famous word of the Mizritcha Maggid. Vayisyasu b'tachti sahar, the Gemara in Masechta Shabbos says that Kadosh Baruch Hu lifted the mountain and held it over Klal Yisrael, threatening them, Im atem mekablim HaTorah mutiv v'im lav sham tehei kfudaschem. The mountain falls on you. So of course you have the famous kasha that Taisus asks, but Klal Yisrael said, Nasa v'nishma. We're willing to do and to hear. This was our ultimate expression of commitment, a voluntary commitment. Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu have to lift the mountain over our heads? Zok the Magid, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu was telling us, I know now you're screaming Nasa v'nishma. Now is the time of intimacy. Now you're surrounded in a midbar by Anani Akavai, by man falling from Shemayim. It doesn't get any better than this. Now you feel like being close to me. Now you want the Torah. You feel the Kedusha in the air. Your neshama yearns for the mitzvahs. But there's a long saga in the story of Klal Yisrael. And there are going to be many chapters where, although in reality we may be surrounded by Anani Akaved and the man is falling from Shemayim, but we don't see it as such. It's cloaked by nature. And the Rebbeinu Shem says, for this commitment to work, then you have to be ready to accept the Torah, whether you're in the mood of saying Nasa v'nishma, because the environment supports it, or whether you're toughing it out with the everyday nisyonos, difficulties and concerns of life. The Nasa v'nishma was good for the midbar. The Kaf Olam HaKagigas was for the course of Galus, until we're Zaycha to Mashiach Tzidkenu and we're back to that open Anani Akaved, man from Shemayim, and water coming out of the rock. Now, one can listen to this and say, much easier said than done. And there's no question about it. It is much easier said than done. So how can we truly take this var to heart? By hearing it from someone who wasn't just saying it, but who was saying it while he was living it. There is a sefer called Eish Kodesh. It was written by Rav Kloinimus Kalmish of Psiencia. Hashem Yakum Damai. And before I share with you this vart that he says in the first Rashi of our Sedra, let me remind you of the setting in which this vart was said. The Psiencia Rebbe is known for his most famous work, Chayvus HaTalmidim, which in certain circles is mamash a classic of Chinuch. Chinuch was his life. He had many, many Hasidim, but the hours that he spent, his commitment was the Bachar and the younger children. He could sit and talk with them and learn with them for hours and hours on end. In the Warsaw Ghetto, he suffered like everyone else. but because he was a figure, the Nazis put a little bit extra emphasis on him to make sure that he feels a double share of the pain. He was a leader of his people to the very moment. His son was never struck by airlight bombing. His daughter-in-law, his wife, standing outside of the hospital, if you can call it a hospital, in the Warsaw Ghetto, trying to see what they can do for their son, were killed when another bomb hit the walls of this structure and it caved in on them. It happened some Chaftarah time. The Yidden had clandestinely gathered to celebrate some Chaftarah. Rav Klein Kalman came in, hearing the news, and he stood there tall and proud and declared loud, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchusai Li'olam Vayed. And he said it over time in and time out again, his voice rising with each repetition of the phrase. His amunah, his acceptance of what was happening, shook the very core of all those who stood there. Rav Klein Kalman feared Tish, a Shabbos Tish. There may have not been kugel, just some potato peels. But he feared that Tish every single Friday night, and he said Torah, and he wrote the Torah the entire week. People asked him, what are you writing? Who's going to find this? It'll be lost in the rubble and the ruins of the ghetto. He said his job was Hayayim, to learn today, to write today, to spread Torah today, and whatever happens to his writings, that is not his concern, that is the Rebbeinu Shalom's concern. When Rav Klein Kalman was summoned to be executed, he put on his big day Shabbos and said, let me do this last mitzvah b'simcha. What happened to his writings? In the rubble of the Warsaw Ghetto, a Polish boy found it and sold it to an American soldier for a bar of chocolate. The American soldier, who was not Jewish but recognized the Hebrew writing, turned it over to his Jewish chaplain, and we have his sefer today. Try to think about this. Try to think about blocks and blocks of apartment buildings, caved in, blown up. Tons and tons of brick, rubble, and pipe. The sefer was found underneath, turned over, and conveyed to Klal Yisrael. That Messiah's message of learning Torah Hayoim guaranteed that Hayoim, Ki'ilu Hayoim Yitna, is going to continue until Mashiach comes. And it is from this sefer Eish Kodesh that I quote to you. But I must tell you something which shook me to the core before I begin this Torah. In a little footnote over here, and it says over here, this is quoted from the manuscript, it says, Baruch Hashem, Pashas Yisro, this Shabbos Zeh, during this Shabbos, I was hiding. This is already after he knew the Germans were looking for him specifically, and he was lying in some cellar, some bunker, someplace. No food, no water, no air. He knows that outside the Gestapo, walking with huge dogs, are searching for him. And he is saying this Dvar Torah. He wrote it before Shabbos, obviously, and he was saying it on Shabbos to those few people who gather around him. Vayishma Yisro Kayin Midyan, Chaysin Moshe. What did he hear? The Pasuk says what he heard. The Pasuk says he heard of Kol Hasha'asa Lakim L'Moshe L'Yisrael Amle Ki Hoitzi Hashem Es Yisrael Mitzrayim. In the first Rashi, Vayishma Yisro, Frag Rashi, Mash Mia Shama Iba. What did he hear that made him come? And said Rashi, Kriyas Yamsuf U'Molchemes Hamon. So everyone asks the kasha. What does Rashi mean by asking the question, Mash Mia Shama Iba? What did he hear that made him come? The pasuk says B'Seilish what he heard. He heard of Kol Hasha'asa Lakim L'Moshe L'Yisrael Amle Ki Hoitzi Hashem Es Yisrael Mitzrayim. So he quotes Rashi in Pashas V'Yaschanan, Shema Yisrael Shelo Yehi Libcha Cholok Al Hamakayim. Your heart shouldn't be Cholok Al Hamakayim. We have over here, and he quotes this in the Beis Harayin, a very novel interpretation to these words, Shelo Yehi Libcha Cholok Al Hamakayim. There are those who say, I will serve Hashem, I will daven to Hashem, I will learn Torah, if the setting is right. That's not the way it works. The Kadosh Baruch Hu writes the script. And our job is, Shelo Yehi Libcha Cholok Al Hamakayim. Your heart cannot argue about this specific place and say, this place is not a place that's conducive to learning. My mood now is simply not such that I can concentrate. No, you can't do that. That's not what Shema Yisrael is. The commitment of Shema Yisrael is, you can't separate your heart from the specific place that you have been assigned to during any given time of your life. And he quotes here the same wordage of Yisrael Salanter said. And that is where the Torah was the dafka not given in Eretz Yisrael, it was dafka given in the Midbar. Because the Kadosh Baruch Hu is letting us know it is when you're traveling, it is when you don't have a place. Here's where you learn Torah as well. So what's bothering Rashi? The pasuk says Yisro heard about Yetzias Mitzrayim. He got all the details. Fine. So what did he have to come for? He heard all the details. He believed in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why did Yisro have to leave his palace and come running to the Midbar? Mashmua Shama Ibafek Rashi. Rashi's not asking what he heard. The Torah tells us what he heard. But why, after hearing this, did he feel compelled to come? He could have sent a message to Moshe Rabbeinu and say, I'm really impressed with Yetzias Mitzrayim. Do me a favor, send me someone to teach me Torah. I'll pay him time and a half. And the answer is, Yisro analyzed two events, Kriyas Yamsuf and Mochemes Amalek. Amalek didn't attack Klal Yisrael during Kriyas Yamsuf. He said, it's not going to work now, even if I could physically get to them. But they're on a high. The heavens have opened up for them. They're saying Shira. I'll wait for them to inevitably come off their spiritual pedestal over here. When the song will be over, when they'll be on a low, in a time of Nephilas Meisim, because our Ruchnistic ascent is always up and down. I have time, says Amalek. I'll wait until Kriyas Yamsuf is history. I'll wait until they're worried, until they're concerned, until they're frustrated. Where's the water going to come from? We're getting nervous. And I'll take advantage of that frustration, and then I will attack them. And therefore the Pasuk says, Ashekarcha baderech. Amalek said, let me wait for them to get en route, for them not to be home, for them to feel the lack of security of being in any given place. And then I will wait for them to be vulnerable, and I will move in with my Sveika Sidamuna, and I will try to cool them off. So Yisro made a cheshbon. He said, if I sit over here in my house, in my palace, and I'm going to hire the best Rebbe and listen to the beauty of Yetzias Mitzrayim, but that is not going to teach me how to be a Yid, baderech. I see Klal Yisrael was zeicha to their spiritual heights during Kriyas Yamsuf, and then they were even able to endure Amalek and to bounce back and be Yidden in the Midbar. And this is what I have to learn how to do, and I can't do that sitting over here. I have to be with them during their travails and difficulties to learn how to learn Torah then, how to have a munah then. I think these words, coming from the courageous pen of someone who wrote it under the circumstances that we illustrated earlier, could there be any greater example of Dvarim HaYotzim and Halev Nechmasim Leleh? May HaKadosh Baruch Hu help that indeed the simcha and the joy of Kabbalas HaTorah should last with us throughout the year, the high points of the year as well as the valleys in between. In the very second pasuk of this week's parsha, it seems that the Torah wants us very much to remember exactly who's who. The Torah is identifying Yisro as Moshe Rabbeinu's father-in-law and Tzipora as Moshe Rabbeinu's wife. But don't we know this already? I mean, we know that Yisro is Moshe Rabbeinu's father-in-law. If we didn't know it from Parshas Shemais, we know it from the first pasuk in this week's Seder. We know that from the previous pasuk. Vayishma Yisro Kayin Midyan Chaysid Moshe. So Rashi tells us over there that the reason the Torah stresses Chaysid Moshe is to teach us that now it was Yisro's turn to be proud of the fact that he is Moshe Rabbeinu's father-in-law, as opposed to earlier on is the other way around. Moshe was toila the gedula in his father-in-law. Says V'yashav Yisro Chaysid. He said Yisro is my father-in-law. Now Yisro was saying Moshe is my son-in-law. Okay, but why does the pasuk have to repeat it again in the next pasuk? Vayikach Yisro Chaysid Moshe. We already learned the lesson. Then the pasuk says, as Tzipora Eshes Moshe. It doesn't say Yisro's daughter, but the pasuk reminds us Tzipora was Moshe's wife. We know that. And then it says Acha Shiluchel. After Moshe had sent her away. Why did he send her away? So Rashi tells us that he was bringing them to Mitzrayim, and he met Aaron, and Aaron said, here are my wife and children. And Aaron asked very politely, and where are you taking them? He said to Mitzrayim, and Aaron HaKayin said, but the Yidden are suffering so much in Mitzrayim. Are you bringing people into a massive of suffering? That's where you're bringing your wife and children to. So he told her, my brother is right, return now to your father's house. So she took her two sons, and they returned. fine, but why do we have to hear that story over here? If anything, we should have learned about this earlier on. Indeed, when Moshe Rabbeinu first returned to Mitzrayim. And second of all, why this lashon achar shilucha after he sent her away? I mean, sending someone away sounds a little like I've had enough. I'm sending you away. I mean, on the contrary, I mean, he sent her away for her protection. So why didn't the pasuk say after he asked her to return back to her father, well, she'll be safe? Why this lashon after he sends her? The Or Chaim HaKadosh says there is actually a shita that holds that Moshe Rabbeinu divorced her at that point. And that's what Shiluchel means, a lashon of gerushin. Why did Moshe Rabbeinu divorce her? Not because he had any kindness on her, but because he was given this job now, which he did not want. He was drafted into the mitzvah of shlichus of Hashem. He did not know how long it would take. He did not know exactly how things would play themselves out. I mean, he knew the Yidden would come out of Mitzrayim. But for the near future, he told her, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen now. The shlichus was thrust upon me. Malchus was thrust upon me. I have to now go to war against Paroi. Klal Yisrael is my charge, my responsibility. How can I bring you into Mitzrayim under these circumstances? How can I possibly protect a wife and children under these circumstances? Whatever the case may be, whatever the cheshbainas were, Moshe Rabbeinu actually told her, I'm sorry, I have no choice. You have to go home to your father's house. Not only that, he sends her home together with the two little babies. He says, I can't take care of a little baby. Eliezer was just born now in the hotel. That was the story with the bris milah, says the Or Chaim HaKadosh. Gershon wasn't much older, probably. So just picture the scene. Yisro finally marries off his daughter. Let's bear in mind, Yisro did not have an easy time. Yisro was not very popular. He had gotten rid of all of the avodah zaras. You can imagine that the people who grew up with these avodah zaras were not particularly fond of him. I mean, Moshe Rabbeinu had to rescue Tzipora. So who would have married Tzipora? So finally he marries her off. And she has two children. Mazel tov, mazel tov. And now he's leaving back to Mitzrayim. He had to get special permission from his father-in-law to leave. His father-in-law says, look, I'm not going to hold you back. If you want to go, you can go. Look how nice Yisro is being to Moshe Rabbeinu. And what does he get from it? No, he would expect in a couple of days he would get a letter from his daughter, from his grandchildren, and from his son-in-law, how nice things are in their new home. All of a sudden, there's a knock on the door. Tzipora is back with her two little children. Hello, father. My husband just sent me away. It's over. He says he has a shlichus, the Rebbeinu Shalom called him someplace, and we can't go with him. We're back yours. Now, picture it this way in the eyes of Yisro. What would your feelings be toward Moshe Rabbeinu? So, the Or Chaim HaKadosh says that the pasuk is really talking about the praise of Yisro over here. Yisro returns. Vayikach Yisro, Chayisen Moshe, the one proud father-in-law of Moshe, who had to be embarrassed by the fact that Moshe sent his daughter home. And he takes Tzipora, Moshe Rabbeinu's wife, and he says, let's try. Maybe Moshe will take you back. He doesn't say, I'll never have anything to do with that person. No. Even after he sent her away, he says, look, Moshe Rabbeinu is where the Kedusha is. Moshe Rabbeinu is where the holiness is. Whatever he does because the Kadosh Baruch Hu told him to do. He doesn't do anything on his own. Let's go. Let's try. And he comes with no guarantee they're going to allow him into the Ananiya covenant. Yisro couldn't penetrate the Ananiya covenant. He was stuck outside. The Yidden had the best security in the world. So the Medrash tells us this is what Yisro had to go through. He approaches the Ananiya covenant from the outside. He writes a letter. Your father-in-law Yisro has arrived. Please come out to meet me. And if you don't want to come out for my sake, to come out for the sake of your wife Tzipora, and if not for her, then for the sake of her two sons. And Yisro has to, this is what the Medrash says, has to attach his letter to an arrow, and he shoots it into the Ananiya covenant. And although the Ananiya covenant usually rejected any missile, they admitted this letter in Moshe's honor. And the Rebbeinu Shalom commanded Moshe, go out to meet your father-in-law. Apparently Moshe Rabbeinu was somewhat hesitant. I mean, Yisro had served idols all of his life, and Moshe really had no way of knowing whether Yisro was sincere about becoming a Yid and whether he would abide by his decision. And the Rebbeinu Shalom says, yes, he is sincere. I tell you, Yisro came solely l'shem shemayim, therefore befriend him and don't reject him. So of course Moshe Rabbeinu goes out, and Aaron joins him, and the Zekanim join him, and the whole nation joins him. So Yisro received tremendous honor over here. Moshe Rabbeinu bows to his father-in-law and kisses him. And now the Mechilta learns from here that a person has a chiyuv, an obligation to treat his father-in-law with the proper respect. Not just his father-in-law, but he has an obligation to honor his parents-in-law, both of them. That means his trigger too. So look what happened over here. Yisro is willing to go through all of this to meet the person who, in his eyes, sent away his daughter with two little children. And then let's look at things from Moshe Rabbeinu's side. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't have an easy time when he first met Yisro. Yisro was very concerned. I mean, technically Moshe was a fugitive. Paro was trying to kill him. Yisro didn't want to get into trouble with Paro. Yisro, to his credit, had voiced his opinion on behalf of the Bnei Yisrael. He had to leave, but he wasn't interested in more trouble. So he threw Moshe Rabbeinu into a pit without food. And he kept him there for 10 years. So Poirah came secretly and gave him food. The Medrash said, it wasn't until 10 years after he was imprisoned that the Poirah said to her father, maybe you want to see the man that you threw into prison. And his father said, what are you talking about? He's long ago gone from starvation. And the Poirah said, I don't know. Hashem saved Avram from the fiery furnace, saved Yitzchak from the knife on the altar, and Yaakov from the hands of a malach. And he saved this man from Paro's sword. So Yisro dispatched a messenger to the dungeon and was informed that Moshe was alive. And he had been discovered praying to Hashem, which Yisro marveled at, because Moshe was not disillusioned after 10 years of being in that prison. So he ordered at that time that Moshe should be freed, given a haircut, dressed, and brought to his house. Now, people have sorrows from their fathers-in-law, but being thrown into a pit for 10 years, that's a little excessive. That's not the norm. Yet Moshe Rabbeinu, when told by Hashem this is the right thing to do, comes out now and greets Yisro with all the covet of the world. He has Aaron, he has the Zekanim, he has everybody, the entire Klal Yisrael, 600,000 people, and maybe that means including the little children and the women. It could mean millions of people. Moshe Rabbeinu has all of them coming with him to greet Yisro and to accord him the greatest honor possible, and even to take his advice afterwards. What happened over here? How could people, human beings, possibly be at this kind of a madrega? The people wondered. They couldn't wait to see what's going to happen when these two sit down to talk to each other. And they sat down, and what did they talk to each other about? In other words, they went through the inyanim of Kriyas Yamsef. They discussed Mechias Amalek. That means they discussed the epitome of Amunah that Klal Yisrael was Zeicha to, and Amalek who tries to generate Sveikos against Amunah and how Klal Yisrael battles this. They talk about what happened to Paro who denied Hashgacha Pratis, Paro who said that the world is a free-for-all, I am in control, and he was forced Makkah by Makkah to reduce that position until he had to admit that there is a Rabbeinu Shalom on this world, and all of the Makkahs that they suffered were Mida, Keneged Mida, and at the end of the day, everything is going to be compensated for. Everyone will have to pay the price of their chatoyim unless they did tshuva. Everything is with a din and a chesh. Nothing happens by chance. As they're discussing this, the two become very close. Why do they become very close, Moshe and Yisro? How could they bury the hatchet, so to speak, after what each one experienced from the other? Because it was 100% crystal clear in their minds that everything is Hashgacha Pratis. That the Tzipora may have felt pain being sent back with her two little children. There's nothing to blame Moshe Rabbeinu here for. That was the Hashgacha min Hashemayim. The Moshe Rabbeinu should marry Tzipora. They should have the two sons. Tzipora even risked her life for Moshe Rabbeinu. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, now is the time that you are the Shliach for Klal Yisrael. And Tzipora has to return to her father. At least that was the advice of Aaron HaKohen. And Moshe Rabbeinu, well-intended, said, I have no choice. Tzipora accepted that right away, and now Yisro said, you're right, everything is Hashgacha Pratis. What one person does to another has nothing to do with that person. It has to do with what the Gzeira is. That doesn't excuse one person from hurting another, but the Messiah says we're put into situations, and we all try to do our best And as a result, there's no room for resentment. Not if you believe that everything is hashgacha and nothing happens unless the Kadosh Baruch Hu wants it to happen. And Moshe viewed his 10 years in the prison the same way. It wasn't anger against Yisro. It had nothing to do with Yisro. It was Menashe Mayim. He should be in those prisons for 10 years. That's what Yisro was schacter, and he found him davening at the end of the 10 years. And the two clarified the inyan of Hashgacha Pratis, and Moshe Rabbeinu explained the level of Amunah in Hashgacha Pratis that Klal Yisrael had, having just experienced the 10 Makis and Kriyas Yamsuf. Now it's interesting, Rav Gifter pointed this out. The Targum Yedison says, Yishalu Ishma Riyel Shalom, Vayivoyu Hu Ayhela. Where did they come to? But the Targum were also the Mishkan Beit Ofana. They came to the Beis HaMedrash. They came to the Beis HaMedrash. The Pasuk talks about a Suda that they had together here. What do you mean they came to the Beis HaMedrash? Mishkan Beis Ofana means they came over here and clarified the inyan of Hashgacha, and there was not an ounce of resentment between the two, because they each believed whatever happens is a Gzeir min Hashemayim, and it is the best possible thing to happen for that moment. And Klal Yisrael saw this, and they learned from this lessons that spoke volumes. When they began to think about their own personal strife and the little squabbles and fights that go on between themselves, it seemed so frivolous, it seemed so babyish, so ridiculous. So they ran home and said, if Yisro and Moshe, after all they went through, look at each other this way, and their dealings are directly with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're going to continue fighting. And that's why these psukim are the hachana to the Vayichon Shem Yisrael Neged Har Ki Ish Echad B'Lei Echad, which was a prerequisite for Kabbalah Torah. So that's why the Archaim HaKadosh, who doesn't discuss this whole mahalach, but basically that's what he's saying. The Acha Shalachah is the key word in the pasuk over here. Vayikach Yisro Chayse Moshe Tzipora Eishes Moshe. He took back Tzipora, who was the wife of Moshe. He took her back Acha Shalachah, even after he sent her away. Yisro said, I am not going to approach this with normal emotion. There is no resentment in my heart. Tzipora coming back had nothing to do with Moshe Rabbeinu as a person. That had to do with the Hashgacha in Shemayim. And the same way Moshe was makabel that 10 years in prison as a Gzeir min Hashemayim, I am makabel this as a Gzeir min Hashemayim. I want to learn about this Hashgacha Pratis. I want to learn about the man who has a koyach that he can pray even after 10 years of being in a prison. And I'll get the man who harbors no resentment after 10 years just says, okay, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, tell me what you want me to do now. And if I may, I want to remind you of a fascinating word he once spoke out that the Ber Moshe from the Uzha Rebbe brings. The Arizal says that Yisro in his first Gilgul was Cain, and Moshe Rabbeinu in his first Gilgul was Hevel. Why did Cain kill Hevel? One reason, Chazal tell us, is that he was jealous because Hevel was born with an extra sister. Who was that extra sister? It was Tzipora. Cain denied Hashgacha. If Hevel has an extra sister, he was jealous. What do you mean HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him an extra wife? There's a reason he has it and I don't. There's no such thing as a reason. Less din, less dying, says Cain. He has it, I want it, I'm angry, I kill him. Cain was now mistaken that. Cain comes back as Yisro, and he returns Tzipora to Moshe. That's why he doesn't say Vayikach Yisro Chayse Moshe as Bitoy. That's not the point. The point is Vayikach Yisro Chayse Moshe as Tzipora Eshes Moshe, the original wife of Moshe, the original wife of Hevel. Yisro says, I now believe in Hashgacha Pratis. I am returning her Acha Shalachah after I caused her to be sent away. In other words, after I killed Hevel. I said less din, less dayan. Now Yisro comes and Vidavke institutes a pattern of dayanim, of justice, and therefore Moshe was compelled to accept the advice because he understood the tikkun that had to be done over here. And that's why he stressed the Soine Botza, because that was one of Cain's problems. He was very cheap. He only wanted flax, and that's why the Torah stresses the karbonis that they were makriv. And after the Torah stresses, he came ala midbar ashehu choyne sham haralikim, because Chazal say one of the things that Cain and Hevel argued about was whether the Beis HaMikdash should be in your chalik or in my chalik. Because Cain wanted the Beis HaMikdash in his chalik, so he killed his brother. That's a shear on its own, but we'll leave that for now. So let's put things into perspective over here. What the Ber Moshe just taught us is exactly what the Archaim HaKadosh is saying. How? Yisro came to Moshe Rabbeinu and said, I now know yesh din v'yesh dayan, and you cannot hurt me. If you did hurt me, it was b'shet min hashemayim. that something should happen, which indeed may have been stressful to me or difficult for me to understand. But I understand nothing happens by chance, and therefore, there is no point in me harboring resentment toward you, because whatever happens is hashgacha sabayre. And Moshe Rabbeinu emphasized and retaught Yisro that hashgacha, a hashgacha that Klal Yisrael learned through the 10 makos and Kriyas Yamsuf. But to talk about hashgacha is very easy. To witness mechila and love in the face of what should have been a difficult relationship, that's a lot harder. That leaves, and in a sense, that's why Klal Yisrael saw something over here, when they saw the mutual admiration between Moshe and Yisro that they've never seen beforehand. They saw someone take the greatest of personal insults and say, it's all hashgacha, I am not angry at this individual. There was a cheshbon whether I understand it or not, whether it's from this Gilgal or last Gilgal. If it happened to me, the Rebbeinu Shem wants it to happen, and I have to work with it, not against it. Only when Klal Yisrael saw this with their own eyes were they really ready for Kabbalah Torah.
This shiur is distributed by Kolavaf, 11 Stay Chemet Street, Yerushalayim. For donations, please call 02-5383-999. Fax 02-538-0267. Postbox 57035.